Have you ever wanted to be famous?
I think sometimes when I say that I'm a coach, I help people become famous, it's very polarizing and people are immediately like, I don't need to be famous. And I'm like,
so how does someone tap into the it factor?
So I think there's a big misconception that people think that you're either born with the it factor or you're not.
3 things you could tackle, how you would change Hollywood today.
Oh my God.
Maybe that's too big of a question.
Oh no, I'm like, that's exactly what I want to talk about. I will say, this is a bold statement, but I don't think most people in entertainment understand social media and old Hollywood as well as I do.
Have you ever wanted to be famous? Well, today I have Whitney Uland with me today, and I'm so excited to get into what it is and what it takes to be that confident self that you've always wanted but didn't know how. Thank you, Whitney, for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I love how you just even framed that about, I think sometimes when I say that I'm a coach, I help people become famous, it's very polarizing and people are immediately like, I don't need to be famous. And I'm like, well, it's more about being embodied in yourself. And when you are in that magnetic energy that can create fame, but no matter whether you're trying to be traditional famous or you just want to feel really confident in where you're working or things like that, it's all part of it.
I love that. And I can't wait to get into this more. But I just want to let everybody know, if you don't know who I am, my name is Celeste. I'm a certified image consultant. I help entrepreneurs master and discover their own unique style so that they can command presence on any stage. And sometimes that's a stage where it's really important. So let's get into that more with Whitney, the professional here. What would you say, what is celebrity energy?
Yeah. So celebrity energy, it's the it factor. It's that intangible, it's the je ne sais quoi. It's like, so I was raised, I wasn't allowed to listen to a lot of like the radio or watch television, very conservative home. And so I don't really know who any celebrities are, but I live in LA now. And whenever I walk into the grocery store or whatever, and there's a celebrity, I can just feel it. I'm just drawn magnetically to look at them because they have the it factor. And that's really the difference between the people who create fame is whether or not they have this, what I call celebrity energy that makes you magnetic to people.
So how does someone tap into the it factor? And can everybody?
Yes. So I think there's a big misconception that people think that you're either born with the it factor or you're not. But I actually heard this fantastic story. This is kind of what set me off on this journey, was that I heard about Marilyn Monroe when she was in New York City. Her photographer has told this fantastic story about how Marilyn loved walking through the streets because people didn't recognize her in New York and she felt like she could kind of just blend in. And one day she turned to the photographer's wife and said, do you want to watch me become her? And they said, what does that mean? And then as if she flipped a switch, all of a sudden cars were stopping, people were recognizing her, and all of a sudden she became embodied Marilyn Monroe. And so that's really what kind of signaled in my head. I was like, okay, so there's something, if it can be turned on and off, then maybe it could be learned as well. And so yes, it is actually something that we all have access to. And what it actually is a hyper-present state. So what I mean by that is my background is in acting, and every actor knows you never want to do a scene with a dog or with a baby because they will what's called pull focus. So you can be doing the best scene, right? You can be crying, you can be like laughing hysterically, whatever, and everyone's just going to watch the dog and just watch the baby. And it's because they're in, and it's not just because they're cute, it's because they're in this present state. And truthfully, it's when they're unafraid of being perceived. So all of us have these fears that come up and, past negative experiences and traumas and just our subconscious mind that has, perceived or imagined threats that make us feel unsafe and make us put up energetic walls that keep us from being seen.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes to you and finds you, what are some of the steps you're coaching them through to pull this it factor out so that they can clearly be a famous actor? Yes.
Yeah. So the main blocks kind of fall into 3 different categories. So the first one is going to be that your mind is afraid of the unknown. So if you think about the way that our brains have evolved, right? We've evolved from cavemen, cavewomen, ancestors, and their job, just stay alive. Like, don't get eaten by a bear. Don't go, right? Make sure that you maintain the status quo. And so if your brain perceives you becoming famous, right? Like if we think about how we adapted in tribe communities, right? Yeah. And we think about that was, maybe maybe 1,000 people, I don't know, hundreds of people. Now, if you go viral overnight, you could have millions of eyes on you.
Wow.
And like if you close your eyes and you picture a million people, you literally can't, right? And the most we can picture is like, however, we're at the Eras tour, right? So the first thing is going to be the fear of the unknown. The second thing is going to be separation from community. So if you perceive, and every entrepreneur, every author, every writer, every actor, if you're making a difference in the world, right? You're going to have to stand out, and you're going to have to say something brave, and you're going to have to say something vulnerable. And it might upset people in your real life. I know it upset my family when I started, speaking out about what was important to me and what matters. And so our minds perceive that, right? And we have historically relied on our family, on our community for survival. And so our brains perceive becoming famous as being unsafe because it's going to cause that separation. And then the third thing is going to be past negative experiences. So if you've ever had, you've failed in the spotlight, you've been embarrassed in front of, your boss, or people were jealous of you and they spread rumors about you, anything that told you that being in the spotlight is dangerous, your subconscious mind is going to be like, oh, we're going to avoid that now. Let's not do that again. So the process of coaching and of finding people's it factor is getting really clear, especially like in those 3 buckets. What's your mind trying to protect you from by putting up those walls, right? Like I used to live in Manhattan, and when I was taking the subway late at night, if someone got on and they were, let's say drunk, and I was their behavior was a little questionable, and I couldn't get off the subway, I would just energetically close down. I would just want to become invisible because that was the best way that I could protect myself. So anytime that we see something as being threatening, we're going to just put up those walls. And so the work is really, it's almost like my clients say it's a combination of like church and therapy, where it's like we're really just like getting into the weeds and being like, okay, like what is your brain trying to protect you from by putting these walls up, and then walking through that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I can imagine that people's walls are just, because I understand that subway concept.
Yeah.
100% when I lived there. I was like going home late at night, and I'm just like, woo, I'm going to make myself really, really small.
Exactly.
And so I imagine that they're like, okay, so once I tap into that it factor, I have this renowned, I don't know, would you call it confidence, or is something more than confidence?
Yeah, so I do differentiate. I think so many people also think that it is confidence, right? This magnetism. But again, it really is just about being safe, being seen for where you're authentically at. So what I mean by that is, if we watch actors who are really good at their craft, they're not confident in the scene that we're drawn to watching. They could be crying, they could be, going through whatever, but because they're having a really valid experience, they're in the present moment. Our brains, as we're watching them, we have mirror neurons, and we create a like synchronicity between their experience and ours, and we can't help but watch it. So you don't have to be happy. You don't have to be like feel like you're better than anyone else. You don't have to put yourself on a pedestal. And I think that's what's so amazing about this is you just have to be willing to be seen vulnerably. But that's scary.
Yes. It's also really powerful.
Really powerful.
Yeah. Do you have a story about a client that has used this celebrity energy to close a big deal or a dream job?
Yeah. Oh God. I mean, I have the most fun job in the world because I work with celebrities, and then I work with people who are creating their dream life and creating dream results. I mean, just this week I had a really fun win for one of my clients that made this shift. And it's so fun because I can see when she's creating content on social media, I can see the shift in her energy before and her energy after, right? And it's very tangible to me. And I think but it's one of those things where we're like, I can't quite put a finger on why this is better, but this one is better kind of thing. Okay. And she just she tapped into it. She tapped into her power, tapped into her authority, and signed this huge brand deal, which was really exciting for her. It was awesome. A dream client that she had been wanting to go after. But yeah, I mean, I help artists, creatives, influencers, entrepreneurs. So whether it's a dream client, a dream booking, a dream role, a dream job opportunity, speaking gig, the amazing thing that I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs realize is that fame is just the resource of having people's attention. And when you have that resource, you can leverage it into things that are meaningful to you. So once people care about you and you have their attention, you can then get a book deal. You can get a speaking gig. You can get, you can sign clients. You can sign with an agent. Whatever it is that you want to exchange that attention for, it's really just a powerful tool. I would say it's arguably like almost as powerful as money, if not equally.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I love that. So do you think that for you just getting like the wins that you see, because do you see yourself back in the day, like when you were trying to go through this yourself?
It's so funny because, yeah, I mean, I found all this work because I was just the most struggling actor. I could not get work. And I ended up finding the coaching tools and the coaching because my dad passed away and I needed to turn to it for a place of healing. I found life coaching and mindset work to be, at that moment of my evolution, more helpful than therapy. And I found, though, when I worked on my mindset, my acting career started to like get some sea legs, right? And started to like get some traction. And so, and really just pulling all these pieces together. And that was when I realized, like, oh, the more safe I feel being perceived, the more that I can feel embodied and just feel safe being seen vulnerably, then that's when I signed with a top agency. That's when, I got a development deal. That's when I booked a recurring role on HBO. And all of the things just started to kind of click into place. But it's interesting because now as a coach, I'm leveraging that skill that I have of turning heads into, a social media following for my business. And so just watching how it's interesting, because I always say with creating this, it's new levels, new devils. There's different places, right? Where, so it's like, I feel like I figured out how to turn it on when I'm, writing a script, but doing it on social media was kind of that next step for me, and being able to be seen, potentially by millions of people, and which now I am. But it's taken a lot of work to lay that foundation. I think we always think that we want attention or that we want fame, but the truth is our minds are afraid of holding it, and we perceive it as being threatening. I mean, it's why so many people feel uncomfortable when people sing happy birthday to them, right? Or like receiving a compliment. Like no one can receive a compliment, right?
I never understood that.
Yeah, and I
went through the same thing though.
Yeah, but it's inherently, we feel like we could be taken advantage of if we get too comfortable, right? And we just receive love. And that's what fame is, and is just, well, it's potential for receiving love or receiving backlash.
Yeah.
And it's a vulnerable spot to be in. So it's been fun just kind of like in my own life being able to now turn that into my social media and now build my business, helping other people do the same thing by being I'm like, so many of my clients make me sign NDAs. So I'm like, I have to be the one to like show them, like,
yeah,
I have to be the proof of my pudding, I guess.
But that's okay. I'm the proof of my pudding as well.
Totally.
So it's like, you have to embody that just as much as your clients do.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, you understand it, and that's what makes you so great at it, because
Yeah.
you can literally tap into that at any time, and you understand, you've gone through that. And I think there's something so powerful with that.
I do too. And I think there's something to be said for, I've met so many celebrities now who have been fans of my work, and they're like, you articulated something I didn't realize I was doing. And now and they're like, I didn't realize, but that's like, I've kind of been able to like reverse engineer something that maybe came naturally to them. And so then when they're feeling blocked at their next level or whatever, it still is just about like turning up the dial. And yeah, I think sometimes you have to have started, like for me, I started really bad. Like this was not natural for me. And so I had to like learn all of the steps and develop them. But I think that's what makes me a good teacher of it.
Yeah, I mean, we never just get off. And I mean, I guess there are some people that are very natural from a young age. So I can't say that most people, but most people in general need to do the things and practice and every day take the steps towards their big, audacious goals.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, so perfect question then. I have a question. So Jim Carrey has spoken candidly about the challenges of fame, but he once said, I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that that's not the answer. I mean, is this quote Carrey is expressing the fame and wealth don't necessarily lead to happiness or fulfillment? So chasing fame might not be as fulfilling as people think. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, 1,000,000% is true.
Okay.
I mean, even just on my own podcast this week, for those of y'all listening, Celeste and I were talking before the show. I had this really great week in my business. I was, in New York at an event, and I was featured in Vogue and Daily Mag and OK Mag. And there was this story about with how Sharon Stone was attacking me. Like, it was just a big week for me in my business. And at the same time, a guy that I liked kind of dumped me, and like it just was a good and like my apartment literally flooded with sewage, and I had to move all of a sudden on a dime. So I think it was just a reminder that like, yeah, you're going to like, you can achieve fame is just a goal that you can create. Creating money is a goal you can create, and you're going to get there. And there's different problems. Mm-hmm. If I'm honest, I prefer these problems than the ones that I had before. I mean, maybe not the sewage flood, but yeah, but like, it's always going to be a trade-off. I think life is 50-50, and there's new levels, new devils. So, but I do think that the amazing thing about fame is once you create it, then I really do think that most people come to the desire for fame from a place of pain, and from a place of hurting, and from a place of needing attention. And once you get fame and you realize that hole doesn't go away, I think that that's actually where a lot of celebrities that's where they turn to addictive behaviors, and they turn to abusing substances and things like that, because they've realized, some of the most depressed clients that I have are the most successful ones, because they're like, oh, this thing that I was chasing because I thought it would fill the void didn't. And now I don't know what else is left to fill the void. And and I think that's why there's such a big issue with suicide in our industry as well. And so I think that on the flip side, though, there is the opportunity to heal as you go through this process, and as you heal those parts of you that didn't feel like you received love as a kid, didn't feel like you received attention. And then once you do, as you heal those places, then creating more fame purely just becomes about impact, right? Like at this point, I've already created more fame and I'm not as famous as I could be, right? Like I'm not on Jimmy Fallon yet.
Not yet.
Not
I like
yet.
that.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
But I like there still is so far that I want to go, and yet I've already blown my mind based off of where I came from. And I never thought that the things that I'm doing now would be possible. And now it's really like, yeah, it's kind of fun to be like, yeah, I'm going to be on Good Morning America one day, and I'm going to be a New York Times bestseller, and I'm going to win an Emmy. But I also don't I know that the reason for it now is just because it's just like a fun game, and because I get to impact people. And there will come a time where I want less fame, but the current amount that I have, I really enjoy, and I like the community that I've built. It's really meaningful to me when I meet people, and most of my audience is in Los Angeles, so I see them every day, right? And just to be able to hear about how my work is impacting them is so meaningful to me. For me, it's been a very reciprocal and loving experience. So I think those are kind of different. It just kind of depends on your motive, I guess. No,
but I do love that. And I think you said something on social media the other day that really kind of struck home. I mean, I only lived here for 5 years, way back, 2000s. And so I got the experience, but nothing like you. And you talk about Hollywood basically needs, I don't know if it's a makeover, needs to be rebuilt, needs to have this whole new, spin on positivity. And I think you're the person for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, what are some of the things that you would say, 3 things that you could tackle, how you would change Hollywood today?
Oh my God.
Maybe that's too big of a question.
Oh, no, I'm that's exactly what I want to talk about. I think that the amazing thing about social media is that it's democratized who gets to have a voice. And I think that creators are able to show now that if you have something to say, and it's hard because you have to bet on yourself, right? With the old way that Hollywood was set up, you had to have a bunch of gatekeepers greenlight your ideas. And if you're creating online, you have to say, I think what I'm making is good enough. I think what I have to say is good enough. And so it gives an opportunity for people who maybe, come from marginalized backgrounds, come from trauma, come from a different perspective than what Hollywood has been made from. So I think that number one, I think that the gatekeepers right now don't realize the impact and the potential in social media, and have not. I will say, this is a bold statement, but I don't think most people in entertainment understand social media and old Hollywood as well as I do, and understanding that marketing piece, and how those worlds are blending. I think people still see them as very separate.
Okay.
So I think that's one, is just to kind of understand the power in it and to start utilizing the creators. Second, I mean, I think that paying people fairly is always a good place.
I would say so.
A good thing of paying people equitably. And, unfortunately, like, I think, we've got so far to go. I've had my own experiences with being taken advantage of sexually on sets. And I think that there's been a lot of progress with intimacy coordination, and things like that. But I think in terms of creating safe spaces for artists, I think that there's some room to grow.
Yeah,
for sure. And I ultimately do think, though, that I mean, listen, this is me being biased, but I'm also like, I don't know, I kind of just think if more women were in charge, I think that it would be a safer place for everyone.
Thank you very much. I 100% agree. It's not enough.
Yeah, because, and that's the thing that I've seen just in my experience. I'm really grateful. The festivals that I've been a part of as a filmmaker, and the artists that I've been able to work with have all been very focused on inclusion, diversity, representation, things like that. And every single person I meet is always, they felt like they kicked down a door and now they're opening it up for other people. And I'm like, more of those people. We need more of that,
yes.
Right? But it really does. Like, I'm honestly enchanted. I'm excited. I'm optimistic based off of just the community that I've built, what I see online, and I was the president of the Junior Hollywood Radio Television Society of America. And even on that side, I was the only creative in my cohort. Everyone else was a junior executive. And everyone there was an awesome person and wanted Hollywood to be better and wanted more better voices to be at the forefront. So I'm optimistic, but that's just who I am.
But we need more optimism too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're right.
And we need more people like us, like we talked about.
Exactly. And I guess number 4 is they should just give me a show.
Okay, everybody, did you hear her? Give her a show.
We're going to manifest that together.
Yes, let's do it. I love that so much. And if anybody, like, I really do see you as a game changer. I do see the posts that you put on social media, and I really feel your heart in it. And look, I'm not in this world, but I feel like that's missing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. So this is a question from the audience. If I'm an entrepreneur listening to this right now and I want to start taking action today towards becoming a celebrity, what would you recommend?
I think that the first thing is to get really clear on your vision and root into why you want to make a massive impact. That's really what I believe in terms of being a celebrity. I think that, I was having a conversation with an entrepreneur this last week, and I had to ask like 6 different, she got on a call with me to ask me questions about working with me.
Okay.
And I still was like I had to ask in like 6 different ways to be like, okay, what do you really want here? Like, what would, like, if no one was going to be mad at you and it wasn't cringy and you weren't embarrassed and it was all going to work, how famous would you want to be? How many lives do you want to impact? Because I think that it's because Hollywood has not been the safest place. It's so taboo to even admit that you want to be famous. And so I think the first thing is really just to get clear on what that would look like for you and just expanding into that possibility.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that, because even as I'm talking about my big audacious goals to other people, and I have to say this, and I don't know why I say this, but I'm like, oh, but like, I'm really humbled or something. Like, I have to put a little powder on it to make it sound like I'm not being someone that's cringy, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
And it's so ridiculous.
I mean, it's human nature,
Yeah.
so it makes sense that you do that. But I think that the biggest skill, truthfully, to becoming famous is to have your own back so that you feel safe being misunderstood, because that's the truth of it. I mean, I had a post the other day. Actually, it was the Vogue post, and someone saw it on the day after the election. And the post didn't come out on that day. It came out before that.
Yeah.
But someone still commented, and they were like, this is really insensitive of you to post this. And I'm like, I didn't, you didn't even read, like it, that wasn't, you didn't even read it, right?
Yeah.
So, or like check the timestamp on this, but it just, you know, no matter how often you're trying to, like my whole mission is that I want to empower people and I want to help people, and I still inadvertently fuck up and hurt people sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it's just about having my own back and knowing that my intentions were pure and that I'm always listening and I'm trying to get better and I'm always willing to own my mistakes is what I strive for.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, that's all we can do, right?
Yeah.
So I think I love this so much. I think everybody here learned a little bit of something on how to tap into that it factor. If you don't, where can we find you?
I am all over the social media, just at Whitney Uland, and my website is howtobefamous.org. My podcast as well, How to Be Famous with Whitney Uland.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. And if you guys want to learn more about image, style, and how to be confident, like and subscribe below. Thank you.